MetLife Stadium, home of the New York Giants and Jets, home to some of the NFL's most iconic moments, and home to more devastating injuries than any other field in the NFL. Odell Beckham Jr.'s ankle, Nick Bosa's ACL, Malik Neighbors' ACL, and then Aaron Rodgers' Achilles, just 4 plays into his Jets debut. Some fans call it cursed, players call it dangerous, and the NFL, well, they just keep saying it's unlucky. But here's the question that I've been asking. Is MetLife Stadium actually cursed? Or is there something deeper going on with that turf? Because when you start digging into the numbers and the stories, you might just realize this isn't just bad luck anymore. When MetLife Stadium opened back in 2010, it was supposed to represent the future of the NFL. A $1.6 billion state-of-the-art home for both the Giants and Jets. Big lights, big games, and big money. But there was one thing about it that wasn't so futuristic: the turf. Instead of natural grass, MetLife installed a new surface called UBU Speed Series S5M, a synthetic turf designed to mimic grass while cutting down maintenance costs. You heard me right, a stadium that generates over $150 million in revenue a year, worrying about maintenance costs of around $100,000 to $200,000. Anyways, it sounded great on paper. The problem, it didn't play like grass. Players started noticing early on that something felt off. Cuts didn't feel clean, the ground was too firm, and when you went down, it hurt. Nick Bosa, after tearing his ACL here in 2020, said, "It was one of the worst fields I've ever been on." That 49ers game in week 2 of 2020 was brutal. Not one, not two, but multiple starters went down. Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas both tore their ACLs. Jimmy Garoppolo left with a high ankle sprain. And the Niners sideline said the turf felt sticky, like their cleats were getting trapped. It was so bad that the NFL and the NFLPA launched an investigation. But after testing, they claimed the surface met all required safety standards. Basically, they said it was fine. It's just fine? Tell that to the players. Jabril Peppers tearing his ACL. Sterling Shepard tore his ACL there in 2022. And even Giants safety Julian Love said, "Every time you plant, you think about it. On grass, you just play." So year after year, MetLife became known for something you don't want to be known for: injuries. And not just freak injuries, non-contact ones, the kind that makes you question the surface itself. By 2022, the NFL Player Association had enough. President J.C. Tretter released a statement saying, "Players overwhelmingly prefer grass. The data is clear. Turf causes more non-contact lower body injuries." But here's the kicker. MetLife Stadium didn't end up switching the grass. They just instead replaced the turf with new turf. So when the 2023 season rolled around and Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles 4 plays into his Jets debut, every player in the league had the same reaction. Here we go again. The stadium and the turf in it might have been new, but the story wasn't. Alright, well, let's talk about the injuries. And yeah, it's a really long list. 2020, Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas both tear their ACLs in the same game. Kyle Fuller tears his ACL in 2022 while on the Ravens. Sterling Shepard tears his ACL back in 2022 against the Cowboys. James Robinson, another non-contact Achilles tear versus the Jets in 2022. Odell Beckham Jr. dealing with multiple ankle injuries and hamstring issues throughout his Giants career. Jalen Phillips, another non-contact Achilles tear in 2023. Brandon Marshall, another non-contact ankle injury in 2017. Malik Neighbors jumping up for a pass, tearing his ACL just this year. Aaron Rodgers tearing his Achilles on the 4th play of his Jets debut. And yeah, the list I just gave are some of the more star players that got hurt on that field and more notable injuries. But it's not just them. There's everyday linemen, cornerbacks, special teamers, and the list would just keep going. In 2020 alone, players from 6 different teams suffered lower body injuries at MetLife Stadium within the first 5 weeks of the season. Even visiting players started speaking out. Like veteran wide receiver Tyler Lockett said it best, "You don't feel safe out there. You're thinking about your footing more than you're actually thinking about football. That's not normal. Here's where it gets interesting. The NFL/team owners love turf because it's cheaper and easier to maintain. But the science, it's not even close. A 2019 NFLPA study found that players are 28% more likely to suffer a non-contact lower body injury on turf compared to grass. And when you break that down even further, turf leads to 32% more non-contact knee injuries and 69% more non-contact foot and ankle injuries. Basically, turf doesn't forgive mistakes. When you plant wrong on grass, it gives. When you plant wrong on turf, it grabs. So if you ever wondered why these injuries look so brutal, that's why. Even Aaron Rodgers said it after his Achilles tear. We have got to get rid of turf. There is no reason it should still be in stadiums. Now, after years of backlash, the NFL finally responded. In 2023, MetLife Stadium announced they were going to replace the old service with a new one. Field core turf with heavyweight infill. Sounds fancy, right? The league claimed it would have more give, more natural footing, and a grass-like experience. Players were cautiously optimistic. Jets tackle Dwayne Brown said, "It feels better, but I'll believe it when I see guys stay healthy." Then, early in the 2023 season, injury rates slightly dropped in the preseason. But until that Monday night game that I've already talked about in this video, Rodgers' debut, 4 plays in, Achilles gone. Even with the new turf, the MetLife curse struck again. So when you stack all this together, the injuries, the headlines, the player reactions, it's easy to see why MetLife Stadium gets labeled as the problem. Injuries happen here, and they happen loudly. On primetime games, superstar players, in the biggest media market in the league. And when that happens over and over again, the narrative almost writes itself. But here's the thing. Narratives aren't always facts. Because once you strip away the emotion, once you stop replaying the same few injuries in your head, and you actually look at the data, MetLife might not be what you think it is. So is it really cursed, or are we just seeing patterns when there isn't any? Fans are calling it the MetLife curse. And honestly, when you hear names like Rodgers, Nick Bosa, and league neighbors back to back, it feels eerie. But let's take a step back and actually look at the numbers instead of the names. A BetMGM analysis of NFL injury data found that MetLife Stadium doesn't even have the most injuries per game in the league. In fact, State Farm Stadium, the home of the Cardinals, ranked first with 5.95 injuries per game, while MetLife came in second at 5.92 injuries per game. That's close, but technically not the worst. And at the same time, Arrowhead Stadium, the home of the Kansas City Chiefs, had just a 4.05 injuries per game, far below MetLife and the league average. But in week 15, Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL and LCL on the safest field in the NFL. So why does MetLife feel cursed? Here's the thing. More games doesn't mean cursed field. MetLife hosts 2 teams, which means twice as many home games, twice as many practices, twice as many opportunities for injuries to happen there compared to a single team stadium. Secondly, numbers versus narrative. Yes, MetLife Stadium shows up high on injury list. Yes, many high-profile injuries did happen there. But when you normalize for games played, it's technically not the worst surface in the NFL according to BetMGM. And even the NFL itself has data suggesting MetLife isn't the villain some make it out to be. In one league study done in 2024 by Yahoo Sports, its lower extremity injury rate ranked 9th best overall. And for visiting players, it was the safest field in the league in that data sheet. Lastly, is it a curse or confirmation bias? Here's the reality. Injuries will happen everywhere in football. It's a violent sport. MetLife hosts a lot of games, which naturally means more injury viewer exposure. The NFL and NFLPA count injuries differently than fans and media do. Yet, the story sticks because everyone remembers when a major player goes down, especially in New York. But if you look beyond the horror highlights and actually dig into the data, the cursed stadium idea starts to look a little more like a narrative we have all been sold rather than a proven fact. Here's the good news. This conversation is finally changing. For years, turf was sold as the future. Cheaper, easier, more durable, but now players are pushing back harder than ever. Because when some of the most recognizable players in the NFL go down, on the biggest stage possible, people listen. The NFLPA president, JC Tretner, summed it up perfectly. If 90% of players prefer grass, why aren't we listening to them? The NFLPA has been loud, players have been even louder. And even some of the teams have already been ahead of the curve. Philly, grass. San Francisco, grass. Baltimore, grass. Even international soccer stepped in. With the 2026 World Cup coming to the US, FIFA requires natural grass fields. And MetLife, they have already confirmed the switch to grass for the World Cup. Which raises a simple question. If grass is good enough for the biggest sporting event on earth, why wouldn't it be good enough for the NFL? Now, to be fair, MetLife isn't ignoring the issue. They have changed turf systems. They have brought in consultants. They have passed all the inspections. There's no evidence the field is unsafe by any league standard. But maybe the standard itself needs to change. Because this isn't about blaming one stadium. It's about listening to the people risking their bodies every Sunday. So maybe MetLife isn't cursed. Maybe it's just caught in the middle of football evolving. And maybe, once the grass goes in permanently one day, the headlines stop, the memes fade, and the narrative finally changes. Because no stadium should be known for injuries. And no player should have to wonder if the field is working against him. Now, is MetLife Stadium really cursed? No, it isn't. But it's just a reminder, when profits get prioritized over player safety, everyone loses. But with the league finally taking steps to fix it, maybe we are seeing an end of an era. Because at the end of the day, nobody tunes in to see an injury. We all tune in to see greatness. So what do you guys think? Is MetLife Stadium cursed, or is it just all a big coincidence? Please leave a comment down below and a like, and thank you all for watching.